Hey guys, what's going on? Space Cowboy here. Welcome back to the channel. Got another video for you guys today. Before we get started with today's video, if you guys could please make sure to hit the like button on this video. It helps the channel out a lot and makes a massive difference. Also, please make sure to subscribe to the channel to receive more Dallas Cowboys content from yours truly now and in the future. And finally, hit that notification bell to be notified when I go live or post new content. With that out of the way, want to talk about the 53-man roster finally. Able to get my hands on talking about this roster. Got the time to do it. But now that all the moves have been more or less finalized, we can go ahead and talk about it and, just give my thoughts and opinions on it. So I don't know how long this video will be, so please make sure to sit back, relax, and we'll just see how this thing goes. So let's first start off with the quarterbacks, okay? Quarterbacks, the Cowboys will be carrying 3. I believe that they might have just carried 2, but it looks like Ben DiNucci, granted he is Mike McCarthy's guy from what we're hearing and, based off of the whole draft process, but, it's interesting to see that he's on the roster. That's the thing that was kind of interesting to see. So, we're rolling with Dak Prescott as the starter. Andy Dalton will be the backup for this year, and then Ben DiNucci is quarterback 3. I really, I'm not shocked by this. I really do believe that the Cowboys, I think, look, it really comes down to how, they viewed Ben DiNucci. If he was that good in training camp or he just, stood out that well, I think that ultimately maybe, he's the next, he's the next backup quarterback here in Dallas. So we'll take well, hopefully things go well for him. If he could just be better than Cooper Rush, I mean, that's solid. If he can learn behind Dak and Andy and become a solid backup, that'd be perfect. So there's that. Now, we're going to go ahead and move over to the running backs. Now, I believe this is probably the biggest shock. The Cowboys have 3 running backs. No fullbacks. We do not have a fullback on the roster, which is a shock because I really did think that Mike McCarthy was going to roll with a fullback. But we'll get into that later. Rolling with Ezekiel Elliott as the starter. Tony Pollard is your number 2. And then Rico Dowdle. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you if you know in advance. But Rico was a undrafted free agent out of South Carolina. 22 years old. I mean, again, I haven't seen much. I haven't seen much footage regarding him. Really, there was no talk about him, and I'm not trying to sound ignorant. It's just based off of my, research. I haven't seen anything regarding him, but so I'm not gonna act like I know a lot about him. All I know was that when we initially signed him, he was a guy to keep an eye out on. In terms of who could possibly be running back 3. There was a couple other guys, but either way, Zeke and Tony Pollard, obviously you have those 2. I don't know how much Rico will get snaps, but maybe he will, maybe he won't. But otherwise, I think this is just as expected. I don't see any surprise. The only surprise I see is having no fullback. I definitely thought that Sewo was going to make the roster because of Mike McCarthy's history of having fullbacks and stuff like that, but maybe he doesn't need that. Maybe he's, gonna go in a different direction, which I believe he is, and we'll get into that momentarily. Moving over to the wide receivers, we have 6 wide receivers, and they are as follows. Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and CeeDee Lamb are your starters. And then for the backup, the backup wide receivers, you have Cedric Wilson, Noah Brown, and Ventel Bryant. So, I did a video talking about, who I think might be wide receivers 4, 5, and maybe 6. I talked about Ventel Bryant. I felt that, him and Noah Brown were going at it because I thought that Devin Smith did enough to make the roster, but evidently no. So, Cedric Wilson, I do believe he is wide receiver 4. And then you have Noah Brown, who I think, based off of what the reports were saying in terms of his special teams abilities, managed to make a lasting impression to keep him on the roster. And then Ventel Bryant, kind of the same thing, just special teams guy, but also another interesting fact that the Cowboys are rolling with 6 receivers, but Again, not shocked because, Mike McCarthy usually likes to get the most out of his receivers. He's been known to have some, develop, late round guys or like early, like second round guys and make them into something. Devontae Adams, Greg Jennings, Jordy Nelson. So we'll see what he can do with a CeeDee Lamb like prospect. He's the best wide receiver he's had in terms of being a coach, prospect wise. So I do like this receiving core. I personally believe that even if Ventel Bryant was substituted with Devin Smith, I do believe that the Cowboys have a very good receiving core. Very, very damn good in terms of the starters. But as for this, the backups, solid. I hope that Noah Brown gets more, looks. But who knows? Maybe he doesn't. I mean, he's gonna play special teams, but we'll see. And same with Ventel Bryant. I don't think you're gonna see a whole lot from him. But let's move on to tight end. Now, tight end. This is interesting. Cowboys have 4 tight ends. They have Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz, Blake Bell, and Sean McKayon. Now, what's interesting about this is that I do believe that the Cowboys are going to use either Schultz or Bell in terms of being a blocking tight end as a fullback. And we saw this in years past. We saw Dalton Schultz act as a fullback before in preseason games. And then it's just, I believe that this is probably their substitute for the fullback, which honestly, the Cowboys haven't really used the fullback position in a excessive amount or large amount to justify having a guy on a multi-year deal. But who knows? We'll see what happens this year. Maybe, this is the future with the Cowboys under Mike McCarthy. Maybe this is something he's changing up. Hey, we're not doing fullback. We'll just add another tight end, and we'll go from there. Interesting name here, Sean McKayon. Now, when he got initially signed by the Cowboys, I thought he was just going to be training camp body, nothing crazy. And him making the roster is an interesting turn of events because I would not have expected him to make the roster. I thought the Cowboys would just roll with 3 tight ends, and it would just be the first 3, like I mentioned, Jarwin, Schultz, and Bell. But him making the roster is an intriguing move. I don't know if it's just he's going to be there just for the sake of having a third tight end, and hey, maybe we're just going to use, like, I don't know, like Blake Bell or Schultz as this pure blocking tight end. I doubt that, but you get what I'm getting at. I mean, it's just something to keep in mind. Moving on to tackle, we have Tyron Smith and La'el Collins as your starters, and then Cameron Irving, Brandon Knight, and Terrence Steele. So, not shocked that Cam Irving made the roster. Not shocked. I feel like he's basically your Cameron Fleming replacement, and he's going to start at right tackle to start the season, in place of La'el Collins, who was out for 3 weeks on injured reserve. And I mean, he is not good, but I feel like if it's just a 3-game stretch, I think we would be fine. He started 8 games for Kansas City last year. He looked decent enough to get the job done, but he wasn't like all pro or even Pro Bowl or regular starter type of worthy, but you get what I'm getting at. Brandon Knight, not shocked at this. Brandon Knight has been a solid depth player. And I think, him, and I think this is another thing to keep in mind. The fact that Tyron and La'el didn't have a lot of time compared to the backups in training camp, I think really helped the younger guys really kind of, work with the first, second teams, those types of guys, so that they can, be ready for if an event like a La'el Collins or a Tyron Smith go out. And I think as long as Tyron can stay upright, knock on wood, as you hear me knock on my freaking desk, as long as Tyron can stay upright for the next 3 games and we can get La'el Collins back and everything's A-okay, I think we'll be fine. And Terrence Steele, from what we've been hearing, he's been making a solid impression. I believe he was, if I remember correctly, he was having first team snaps at right tackle. So I don't know how well, and I think from reports of what I've been hearing and seeing, he's been all right. But I mean, I think ultimately the Cowboys have solid depth at tackle. Is it the greatest? No, but it's good enough to have, you know what I mean? It's good enough to last you a couple games, but not a whole season. Next, going to guard, the Cowboys are having 3 guards on roster. Officially, obviously you can have guys that switch up. Those are Zach Martin and Connor Williams and Connor McGovern. Not shocked by this at all. I mean, look, it was either, I felt like that was going to be the starters. I mean, I was interested in seeing if Connor McGovern could make a push for left guard starter, but Connor McGovern we have not seen play because of his torn pectoral last year, and then this year he's been looking solid. But again, I don't think that I really don't think that the Cowboys are going to really what's the word I'm looking for? Like, the Cowboys, I think, are going to just roll with what they have when it comes to the starters, like what we're used to seeing, unless there's a serious need for change. And who knows, and so, who knows? Connor Williams, he's been getting hurt lately. He's been getting like that injury prone tag. So if he does step out, then Connor McGovern steps in. It could be a situation where he plays better. And then Connor Williams, if he comes back, maybe you just roll with the hot hand. So, not shocked by this at all. And then at center, Joe Looney and Tyler Biadasz. Not shocked at all. I think that Joe Looney starting is, I think, a temporary thing. Who knows? Even if Joe Looney starts the whole season, I think Tyler's, learning and just getting time to ease in is solid. But we need to get value out of these late round. Like, we need to get value out of Tyler Biadasz and Connor McGovern. Now, granted, if Connor Williams does well, second round pick, then we're good. If Connor McGovern steps in and he does well, third round pick, solid. If Tyler Biadasz ends up being a future starter for this team, and whether it be between 5 to 8 years as a starter, which again, that's not out of the realm of possibility, that's solid. So hopefully we can get through that. Now, moving on to the defensive side of the ball. At edge rusher, we have DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyrone Crawford, Everson Griffin and Alden Smith, and Dorrance Armstrong and Bradley Anai. No shocks here. I think probably Joe Jackson being cut was probably the most surprising, because I felt like, maybe he can make that. But then again, when you look at it in hindsight, he was probably one of those bubble players where it's like, yeah, you're gone. You know what I mean? So I do believe that, with Randy Gregory coming back, you're going to end up having to make another, I think that was the biggest thing, is just who's your fall guy for when Randy comes back. So I think the Cowboys will make some moves. I don't think they're going to cut one of their edge rushers or anyone on the defensive line, but you get the point. So there's that. But yeah, definitely love this edge rushing group. Has a lot of great talent there. I mean, it's just, you can pretty much take D-Law and Everson Griffin off the field, and I do believe that, I do believe that, we can still get a pass rush, which is crazy to say. Now, I want to mention with Tyrone Crawford, he can play on the inside, but I doubt he will at this point, because going over to the interior defensive line, you got Dontari Poe, Tristan Hill, Antoine Woods, and Neville Gallimore. The fact that they're keeping 4 defensive tackles, based off of, what's being reported, I do believe that the interior, it will be just fine. I think it's going to be a lot better than last year. I mean, you get a guy in Dontari Poe who's a lot bigger and has the ability to really stop the run and really cause troubles for that interior of the offensive line for other teams. And who knows what happens with Tristan Hill. I was talking with Mike from Cowboys Corner last night. We were talking about how Tristan Hill, has put on some weight. So maybe he's going to be a lot better than we think. And who knows, I know a lot of us were hard on him. Like, hey, why isn't he doing well? And again, this could just be a situation where it's like coaching was a problem with the previous administration. So we can't really look and evaluate Tristan Hill until we see him under this new scheme, because maybe he does maybe he does shine. But if he doesn't, you got a guy in Neville Gallimore waiting right behind him. So There's that. Moving over to linebacker. At linebacker, you have five linebackers: Leighton Vander Esch, Jalen Smith, Sean Lee, Joe Thomas, and Luke Gifford. Luke Gifford finally makes the roster. I'm not shocked at this list. I think the biggest shock for me is the fact they didn't get Francis Bernard on the roster. But then again, he did manage to make it to the practice squad. But I really feel like, honestly, you could have I really don't like, as much as I hate to say it, I feel like you could have just let Sean Lee go and kept Francis Bernard. I'm sorry, but Sean Lee, at this point, Sean Lee's just there as, a veteran presence, and it just reminds me a lot of that Jason Witten type of situation where it's like, I'm not saying Sean Lee's a massive liability. He's not, that bad, but I feel like the Cowboys really should have maybe made that decision, as much as I hate to say it, but I don't know. We'll see what happens there. But otherwise, I think that the Cowboys got it right at linebacker. Other than the Francis Bernard situation, I feel like they definitely could have, they could have definitely probably kept them. Now, when it comes to corners, we have 5 cornerbacks. We have Chidobe Awuzie, Anthony Brown, Trevon Diggs, Jordan Lewis, and Daryl Worley. Again, not shocked at this these corners that we're keeping. I think Daryl Worley making it, it's not really a shock. It's more so like, okay, at worst, he is a at worst he's pretty much a backup, or he's absolute garbage, and at best maybe he's a backup and solid, maybe a decent starter. But otherwise, I think the Cowboys got it right at corner. I'm really curious to see what happens with Trevon Diggs. I hope I hope they ease him in, or who knows, maybe he's ready to go. So we'll see what happens there. Moving on, we go over to strong safety and free safety. So we have 4 reported. We have Darian Thompson and Donovan Wilson, and Xavier Woods and Reggie Robinson. Okay, so interesting, because I know a lot of us were talking about Reggie Robinson maybe playing corner, but then they said he moved to safety, which I'm not shocked with. This is something other Cowboys content creators have talked about. I mentioned it in previous talks, whether it be on stream or in video. But the fact that Donovan Wilson, he's here on this roster. Who knows if Darian Thompson? We don't know. It really comes down to this. A lot of us are like, yo, we want to see Donovan Wilson finally shine. And who knows, maybe Darian Thompson doesn't play well, and they end up saying, you know what, Donovan, it's your turn, and he does well. But otherwise, not shocked that Clinton-Dix I'm not shocked he did not make the roster, because, again, when he first got signed, I thought he would just be a camp body. So, or at best, maybe he's just a one-year starter. That's decent. But, again, not shocked at this at all. I think that, yeah, the only 2 interesting points of note, or maybe 3, well, not really, actually 2, would be the Cowboys keeping 4 tight ends and not having a fullback, and Francis Bernard not making the roster. But then again, there might be a plan in place for this entire situation. I don't know. But then kicker, punter, and long snappers being Greg Zuerlein, Chris Jones, and LP Ladouceur, respectfully. So that is the full roster for the Dallas Cowboys of 2020. Things may change. People might get hurt, so you might see some guys change positions as starters and backups, this, that, and a third. But I do love this roster for the Cowboys. I think that this team should do well in 2020, even if it's not winning all those games. I do think that this team is playoff worthy and Super Bowl worthy if all things go well. I love this roster. I think obviously you have question marks on the defensive side of the ball at safety and that interior defensive line. If those 2 questions can be answered, and they don't have to play like all pros, if they can play good enough and the edge, the pass rush can get there, this defense is going to play a lot better. And who knows, maybe this offense is so high-powered you don't even need to worry about having to stop the opposing offense every single time. So we have Sunday upcoming with the Rams. I'll make sure to talk about, things to look out for in the game, just overall thoughts and opinions. If you're watching this video today on September 8th, I have a special guest in How About Them Cowboys Universe coming up at 5 p.m. Eastern, so please make sure to look out for that. And yeah, that pretty much does it. Thank you guys so much for reaching the end of this video. If you guys could, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, hit the notification bell. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys. Bye-bye.